So we were doing the verse number 520, 521 we have done. And there I was telling you that the student was super excited, he was very happy. And in his excitement, he narrated his divine experience of self awareness, self realization. He said that Niskriyosmi, Avikarosmi, Niskalosmi, Nirakriti, Nirvikalposmi, Nityosmi, Niralambosmi, Nirdvayaha, and Swarajya Samrajya Vibhuti Resha, Bhavat Kripa Sri Mahita Prasadat, Prapta Maya Sri Guruve Mahatmane, Namo Namastestu, Punar Namastu. And he goes forward, Namasasmai Sadakasmai, Namasya Namahase Muhu, Yadi Yat Etad Vishwarupena Rajate, Guru Rajate. So he's just worshipping him. And in the verse number 521, which we had done last time, the Guru looks at the student and then he says, Iti tam avalokya sishyavaryam samadhigatatma sukham prabuddha tattvam. This student was already understood the Atma Tattva, Prabuddha Tattva, and the person who knows that Atma Tattva is fully now, what do you call it? Um, he has experienced that illumination, that Sishyavara, the ultimate student, because he could realize it in one life. Pramudita Hridayah sa Desikendra Punah idama ahavachaha parang mahatma. The Guru now tells this is the last dialogue where the teacher, having explained everything, is just trying to bring the dialogue to a close by making a few, what do you call, in meetings or in dialogues, what do you call, concluding remarks. The teacher is giving a few concluding remarks. And what does he say? In the verse number 522, it's Sardula Vikridita. Brahma pratyaya santatir jagadato brahmeva tat sarvatah vasyadhyatma drisa prasanta manasa sarva swavastasvapi rubad anyadevekshitum kimavisa किमभितस् चक्षुष्मतां विद्यते तद्वद्ब्रह्मविदः सतः किमपरं बुद्धिर्विहारास्पदम्. Now the teacher is saying, do you know my boy? Brahma pratyaya sansatihi jagad ataha brahmiva tat sarvataha. So we have been discussing this again and again, that this whole cosmos, the universe that we are watching, that we are seeing, is essentially a projection of that ultimate Vastu called Brahman. The details are a projection. What we cannot see, but we can only do vichara to reach there, that is the Brahma Tattva, that is the reality. This reality is not a material reality that through the mind we can be aware of, we can apprehend, we can be conscious of. This is pure consciousness. And when we know that, that very consciousness only remains, we cease to exist, everything ceases to exist. That triputty, that known and knowing, that gets dissolved. Because this is not an objective material reality we are trying to know. That is that pure consciousness. And there is no reality outside of this pure consciousness. So he's saying Brahma Pratyaya Santati, this continuous flow of that consciousness. Now, you know, there were two famous Greek philosophers. One was Heraclitus, the other one was Xenophon. Xenophon thought this whole cosmos was static, whereas Heraclitus said you cannot jump into the same river twice because new water is flowing there. The whole reality was dynamic. So you have two views, and he's using this word Brahma Pratyaya Sansati because awareness, is it static or is dynamic? Depends on how you look at it. It's neither static nor dynamic. This is Luminosity is a state of bliss, but you cannot surely say that it is static because it's nothing, it's not jada. It is not an objective material thing that it will be static. Brahma Pratyaya Sansati, that flow, Jagat Ataha, this material reality we see, the diversified reality of this whole cosmos, this material universe, is at its root verily this pure consciousness. Ataha, therefore, Brahmiva Tat Sarvataha. Brahma is Adhisthana. The Jagat is Aropita. This is superimposed. This is what we see. What we do not see is the Adhisthana, the substratum, the foundation. That is Brahman. And this foundation, we are seeing a wonderful film on the, like some grand, let's imagine like Ten Commandments or Ben Hur or Out of Africa. Remember any of these movies you loved as a college going or school going student? You're watching that movie. When we are watching that movie, the teacher is telling, please understand, the screen is the only reality. All these pictures are playing out on that white screen, that Brahman. So, Brahmeva Tat Sarvataha, all that you see is foundationally that unified field of consciousness. And then how do I see that? Then he's saying, Pasya Adhyatma Drisha. When that is visible, you please see this. Then what kind of consciousness I need to see this? No, you cannot see this with bare eyes. Through your physical eyes, no. Through mind, no. Adhyatma, Sukshma Chakshusa, these are the words which I used. Adhyatma Drisha. That means what? With the help of Shastra, you do vichara. And at a level of contemplation, which is not mentalization, which is not analysis, at a level of deeper contemplation, when you discard all the words, because words become slowly irrelevant, in the end, what remains is that pure consciousness. Prashanta Manasa, because Antakanas would have been purified, otherwise, mind is pulled from all directions. Sarvasu avasthasu and sarvasu avasthasu. We have three avasthas, Jagrata, Swapna, and a Susupti. Once we are aware of the self, we may go through these three avasthas because, he's not going to be an insomniac because he has Brahma Jnana. We'll still be sleeping. He will be still sleeping, going through dream states and everything. And then his experiences will all be different. So far, the mind is concerned. So far, this whole brain and its process is concerned, he would have a dream state, he would have a, what you call, the Jagrat waking state and the deep sleep state. And there will be three states and three sets of experiences and three sets of reality that he sort of takes into account, he grasps or he connects with. In Susupti, he doesn't connect with anything, he only has the experience of that happiness. The sarvasu avasthasu api, all these experiences are fundamentally what? Not different from that Atma Jnana, Atma consciousness. Then he says, he's giving an examples. Like, for example, a person who has eyes, what can he see? Can he hear songs through his eyes? No. He can see Rupa. All colors and forms he can see. This is white, this is dark, this is blue, this is red. This is a man, this is a woman. He can see all that, forms and features. Through the eyes, he cannot hear. Through the eyes, he cannot smell. Through the eyes, he cannot touch. But he can see forms. Similarly, he's saying, Rupad anyat avekshitum kim avitaha chakshusmatam vidyate. Chakshusman, the Purusha, who has eyes. What can he see other than Rupa, appearance? Rupa is a quality, that attribute, color and shape and size. That's all the eyes can see. Similarly, Tadavad Brahma Vidaha. Similarly, an Atmagyani Sataha Kim Aparam Buddhehe Viharaspadam. What else is consciousness can dwell on, can experience, other than the Brahman? Now, this is what is always adopted in Vedanta. In Drishtanta, we have a different case about our Lokika, Vyavaharika, phenomenal experience of everyday life. What we are trying to understand in the light of our everyday experience is that ultimate thing called the Brahman. And that is what he's trying to experience, trying to explain. The way the eye, that sense organ, can connect with color and shape and size, similarly, the Brahmavid, and there is no sense there. That is Sukshma Drishti. That is Vichara there. Brahma, Dheya Chet, there is a duality because you are doing meditation on the Brahman, you are doing Upasana. Then Nirguna Brahma is Jnaya. Saguna Brahma is Dheya. You can do meditation on Saguna Brahma like Lord Rama or Krishna or Lord Shiva, Ma Kali, whatever. Or Hiranyagarbha, Prajapati, Omkara, these are all Saguna Brahma. Nirguna Brahma, you can only know it. And how? As different from you? No. Your self, pure self is that. That is how he's saying, Satah kim aparam buddhehe viharaspadam. What else can the mind dwell on? Mind is here, not the normal mind. He's talking about Brahmavid, that Atmagyani, the self-realized soul. What else? So there is this statement somewhere, Yatra Yatra Manojati, Tatra Tatra Samadhayaha. The Brahmavid, wherever his mind goes, is always in the state of Samadhi because he's so firmly established in that ultimate truth. Like, for example, a criminal or wherever he goes, he's looking for an opportunity to commit some theft or something, isn't it? Or there is a person who's a businessman. Wherever he goes, he looks for some opportunity to make money. Now, the Atmavid, wherever his mind goes, what is it looking for? He's looking for the self. Is just aware. He's constantly aware of the self. That is how the 522 is explained. Then the teacher expands this point of view through a few more verses. Kastam parananda rasanubhutim uchrujya sunni surame rameta vidwan Chandre mahahladadini dipyamane चित्रेन्दु मालोकयितुं क इच्छेत् कः तां परमानंद रसानुभूतिम उत्सृज्य. Now the doubt is emerging, might emerge in the mind of normal students of Vedanta or lay people who are picking up this book. Why yatra tatra mano yati tatra tatra samadhyah? How is it possible? How can he only be dwelling on this Atma? Why not other things? He's explaining. Kahatam parananda rasanubhutim. That Ananda which is ultimate. There is nothing beyond that. Parananda rasa anubhutim. This rasa which we taste through our tongue have limited utility. You have in economics this theory of decreasing utility. You have one rasgulla, you feel a little good. You have two, fine. Third one, no, you say no. We have had enough of. You cannot go on having the same thing, same experience, be happy about it. So whatever comes to the market in the first few weeks, the prices are very high, and later on it goes down because there are diminishing returns of the same experience. Not so in case of Atmagyana, because that is Niratisaya Ananda. There is nothing else beyond that. Therefore, what he says, Kaha, which person, what wise person, Parananda Rasana Bhutim Uchridya, discarding that highest state of blissful existence or awareness, Sunyeshu Rameta Vidwan. How can that wise person be interested in this Vishaya, this Sansara? Why? Because in Vishaya, this is Sunya, without any substance. No, it's not Sunya because you have real money, real car, real house. In fact, what you are trying to sell as ultimate happiness is actually an illusory thing. That is what a materialist, hedonistic person would tell us. Why should I trust in you? Then the teacher is explaining, look here, I'm calling it Shunya not because it's absolutely non-existent like the barren woman's son or like the hornet's horns. Not like that. I'm trying to tell you Sunya because it's devoid of any lasting substance. It gives you temporary excitement or some sort of a sense experience which doesn't hold beyond a point of time. It breeds boredom. That's why I call it shunya, because it's shunya because it's not purna. It doesn't take us anywhere. So sunyeshu, this is devoid of any meaning. Vidwan. Then he's giving another example. Chande, Chandre Mahahladini Dipyamane. So it's a full moon night, and you are walking in a garden or the riverside or on the seashore, and you're looking at that beautiful luminous moon. It's a moonlit night. It's wonderful. And then when you have that, Chitrendra Malo Kaitum Ka Ichet, and there is this when you have that beautiful splendor of moon right above your head, if somebody shows you a picture of moon, howsoever beautiful it has been drawn, maybe it's drawn by Rembrandt or Picasso, some great painter has done it, some neo-realist has done a wonderful picture, and in the moonlight you can actually see it. Would you pay attention to it? Would it attract your attention, or you like to look at the real moon? One is an imitation or reflection of fake one, a phenomenal one. When you have nothing, you're sitting in your room, you're very depressed, I mean, just imagine if you're a soldier caught up in a barracks, or you're in a ship, you see nothing, you're sitting in a dark room, bored. Maybe you look at that beautiful picture or oil painting in which the moon is emanating out of mountains, and you see that the picture of the valley which is lit up with moonlight. You say, what a painting. But if you're actually looking at the moon, no, that doesn't excite you. Similarly, this Vishaya, this Sansara, is very exciting for the one who hasn't had that Atmajnana, who is not being able to experience that luminosity of the self. Once the Atmajnana has happened, then you are not interested in the Sansara, however much attractive it may appear to somebody else. Then there is a beautiful verse in Bhajagovindam. Yoga ratova, bhoga ratova, sanga ratova, sanga vihinaha. Whether you have yoga, you are doing yoga, or you are doing bhoga. You have friends or you don't have friends. Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam. The person whose mind is established in the Brahman. Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. He is always elated, he is always elated, he is always elated. He is always in a sense of ecstasy. I was looking at a couple of pieces, In Christianity, there is this notion of divine ecstasy. Some of the devotees, not now, a few years back, would practice crucifixion to identify with the pain of Jesus. So they will get crucified themselves. It happens occasionally in parts of Europe amongst the most orthodox, followers of the Eastern Church. Some people, and there are a couple of experiences. One of them, I think, Paramahansa Yogananda had met. There was this famous lady in in Europe, who used to bleed from her palm, remembering Jesus Christ's crucifixion. You had Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who used to break his head against a wall in Puri temple, looking for Lord Krishna. And those marks where he used to hit his head against the wall of a temple is still there. You can see that. Just in a small temple in front of Lakshmi temple inside the Puri temple. So all these things are there. Complete divine ecstasy. But in the Vedanta thing, that emotional ecstasy is not given too much of importance. The exaltation of self-realization is given importance. This exaltation doesn't involve dancing around, shouting, crying, rolling on the ground, which we have seen in the lives of some of the great saints and devotees of Bhagavan. Both in, we also have such cases in some forms of Sufis. This divine ecstasy and love for God we have seen. But in the Vedanta, it's non dualistic. That God you're looking for is not a God who is filling your eyes with tears of excitement or elation or ecstasy, but rather is a consciousness which fills you with a sense of exaltation, which is to be experienced, to be experienced. There is no other way we can access it. That is why the student, in some ways, is saying, I'm this, I'm this. He's very happy and is very elated. But this is not the way. This is not ecstasy in the traditional sense of the term. It's a state of bliss. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. It's like you feel extremely light. It's like a father feels a sense of lightness when he has married off his daughter, the day you submitted your PhD thesis, or you completed a book, or you completed a grand assignment, you feel a sense of satisfaction. This satisfaction is not an explicit act of celebration. This is something deeply within, something very inside, very, very personal, very, very intimate as an experience to you. That's what he's saying. Who will discard this paranubhuti, rasa, rasanubhutim, parananda rasanubhutim, to be again, entangled in this sansara and here and now sort of nonsense where you're going to a party and going for a drink or going for a cricket match. These are frivolous things from the standpoint of that grand experience of freedom. He's saying, why not? Somebody might ask, and the teacher is explaining. Asad padartha anubhaven kinchin न ह्यस्ति तृप्तिर्न च दुःखहानिः तदद्वयानन्दरसानुभूत्या तृप्तः सखं तिष्ठ सदात्मनिष्ठया. The teacher is saying, my son, therefore, please understand this. Now you are happy, you have reached there. So you should be very happy, you have reached it, you have made it. But don't downslide again. Therefore, he's saying, asat padartha anubhave na kinchit. Kinchit na hi asti triptihi. What is asat padartha? You would ask, there is a difference between asat, pratibhasika, and vyavaharika, then the perfect sat, paramarthika sat. So, what is the paramarthika sat? That is Brahman. Other than that, everything is false. Sansara is false, mithya. Is it tuchha? There is a difference between mithya and tuchha. Mithya is what? Which would be negated by the experience of a higher truth. Newtonian physics is mithya from the standpoint of theory of relativity, which not discarded. It holds true at its own level. It's like that. Mithya means not sustainable. Doesn't mean it's completely false. Not sustainable at a higher level of argumentation, of understanding, of realization. Now, what the teacher is saying that this is mithya, so that is vyavaharika satya. There is no contradiction. Newtonian physics is rejected at a higher level of physical understanding of physics and its laws, doesn't make it completely useless. Similarly, the sansara is vyavaharika, even though not ultimately true. Therefore, it's mithya. Doesn't mean completely false. Then there is something called tucha, called the son of a woman who is barren. A barren lady cannot have a child. If she has a child, this child is not called Bandhyaputra, son of a barren woman. No, his mother is fertile, she has given birth to a child. So you can't have both these things at the same time. Now the teacher is saying, Asad padartha anubhave na kinchit hi asti triptihi. So what do you mean by asad? He's saying na sat is asat. Na sat means na paramarthikatvena sat. It's not ultimately real. Like the film is appearing, film is real. The characters are appearing, yes, you see them. Are they real? Are they as real as the film screen? No. Film screen will survive the duration of the film. The character will not survive beyond the duration of the film. Therefore, that is relatively less true, or it's called Nyuna Sattaka. So it's Nyuna Sattaka. It has less space to hold on to in terms of its existence. It also exists, but Nyuna Sattaka. It has a restricted existence. It has an aspect called deniable. It will be deniable at a next higher level. So therefore, he is saying asat padartha anubhave na kinchit hi asti tripti hi. Because if it will be denied after some time, somebody gives you a very good car because you have a certain posting, a certain position as a vice chancellor or as a chief secretary. They're given some good car, beautiful bungalows, which they cannot purchase in one life. For how long? Till the retirement time. After 3 4 weeks, they'll have to vacate it after retirement. So that is deniable at an next higher level. So that's not the ultimate thing. Therefore, he's saying, na kinchit triptihi, because you know it's going to be taken away, you know it's restricted by time and location, and therefore it doesn't excite you. You know it's temporary, it's ephemeral, it's evanescent, it's not going to stick with you. Not even your body, not even your mind. What to talk about the experience? Therefore, he's saying, असत पदार्थ अनुभवे न किंचित ही अस्ति तृप्ति ही न च दुःख हानि ही. What is the dukkha? Atriptikaratva, dukkha mishritatva. Dukkha is what you, I mean, just imagine anything you get in life, whether it's a job or money or house, or even if you have money, all the money in the world, what do you do with it? End of the day, you will still be eating some food and go to sleep. It's good, you have a sense of power, but look at Steve Jobs. I mean, he dropped out of everything. I mean, it was the ultimate example where he wrote that there should be time for somebody also to think and reflect about life and not just achieve. What do? You are not going to take any of these with you. I mean, it's not going to go with you. Whatever that is, it's not going to go with you. Therefore, he's saying, Tripti, not a dukkha hani. What is that dukkha? Temporality, restrictedness. This dukkha is not going to go. It's just for a while, that's it. And therefore, he's saying, therefore, what do I do then? Tad advayananda rasanavitya. And therefore, with the experience of that ultimate exaltation in the self, triptaha sukham tishta. So sukham is kriya visheshana. Triptaha. So be contented. Sukham tishtaha. Stay happy. How? Sadatma nishtaya. So you have that atma nishtha. Because the moment you have sansara nishtha, dukkha starts. Now, in the last class, we had a bit of discussion towards the end that this Atma Jnana, like you see the rope in the snake and you are liberated. Are there phases? Like, why is he advising? The student has already told him that I'm Chidaga, I'm Nirvikara, I'm Nishkala, I'm having limitless happiness. Then what business the teacher has? Once the student says, I have figured out it is a rope, I was unnecessarily scared, there is no snake at all. It's a rope, my dear sir. I'm so happy you switched on the lights and I could see it. Then there is no more any fear. Why is the teacher saying you should always hold a torchlight in your hand when you're moving out in the dark? Be careful. Next time you see a snake, you must put on the torchlight. Why is he saying this? Because what happens, there's a lot of discussion on this. Some people say the Atma Tattva we are reading in the books. So what we know about the Atma Jnana in the beginning stages is Poroksha Jnana, indirect knowledge. Like you know about physics, and then you get into the lab and you do the practicals, then you have the direct experience of it. Until then, no. And there are certain things you have only indirect experience. You have logical, deductive knowledge of it, but you don't have direct experience of it. Atma is like that, about which you have read a lot and you have meditated a lot, but you have no real experience. Then some people say there are a few pratibandhakas or obstacles to a fuller grasp of this. And what is that? Like, for example, you are looking at it and it appears as the rope, you know this, but there is not enough light. Someone else also agrees with you it's a rope. So both of you agree it's a rope, but there's not enough light and there's a bit of doubt in your minds. Could it be a snake? So there's something called sansaya and viparjaya, mithya jnana, fear of viparita jnana. You might, like, for example, I was talking to a monk, and he's been a monk for quite some time, a very bright person, extremely bright student, an MTech, an MBA, and a PhD from a top university. And he was with the Ramakrishna Mission, one of the sharpest. His father is a professor in Bengal, bright guy. But he said, Swamiji, don't you think sometimes I think we are just programming our minds? Maybe God doesn't exist. He's a scientist, anyways. He's a monk, but he's a scientist. Despite everything, it's quite possible. In Christianity, they have a concept of wrestling with God. There is a concept called dark night of the soul. Now, Christianity, Islam, it's all dualistic, right? So there is this idea that sometimes you may be abandoned by God, so you completely lose faith in God. It's called dark night of the soul. And you feel abandoned, you feel lonely, you feel confused, you have no faith. I myself have seen a few cases. I mean, there was this lady who was a professor of psychology, I can't take the name, an extremely enlightened lady who used to counsel a lot of people, and she lived in Pondicherry and helped a lot of people. And suddenly, towards the end of her life, she said, I don't believe in all this, and she wanted to go back to her native state. And she was absolutely she was back in her sanskaras of her academic life, because she was a professor all the time. She was a neo-Freudian psychiatrist, a psychologist who counseled people. She always looked at spirituality with a pinch of salt, but suddenly turned very spiritual. And then the last phase of life, she sort of reverted back to her sanskaras. So this journey is very treacherous. Look at the life of Vivekananda. He had so many questions all the time. Even in his letters to Jose MacLeod, who was his spiritual sister, right? Joe, the clouds keep coming and overpowering my mental horizon once in a while. Because we have loads of sanskaras, and despite the fact that we know things what it is, it's quite possible that it's like I was telling somebody, like, it's like our mind is like a classroom. Your Viveka is the professor, and you have a few students who are bright ones who are sitting in the front rows, and they want to listen to you. They want to do the sadhana. And you have a couple of last benchers who have another agenda. Their job is to disturb the middle benches, find more people who can join them. And they are demanding, we want holiday. We don't want to have longer classes. All happens within our brains. So when we have one of these mischievous last benchers who comes to the class very occasionally, he wants to upset your inner satsang, and he gets the better of it, then all smaller positive sanskaras who are in the middle benches, they lose power. The front sanskaras who are actually aligned with your spiritual purpose may feel powerless. And that's why we bring this idea about being aware of God, chanting, meditation, breathing, because it's quite possible to. It's like the myth of Sisyphus, the person was walking up the hill all the time, carrying that piece of stone, it'll roll down, and again he'll pick it up and he'll try to go up. So it is Vastu Tantra Truth has to be seen only once, but until it's fully realized, beyond sansaya and viparyaya, our sanskaras will keep pulling us back. And that is where we require the protection of God. We require divine protection is actually self protection, because God and self is one and the same thing ultimately. But during sadhana kala, you need to reconnect again and again, and then that's how is the phases, whether it is yoga and even in Vedanta. um, there are a lot of texts where there's a lot of discussion that why even an atmagyani may have a few old sanskaras. There's a spurt of these old sanskaras, and then there's a bit of a stalemate and stuff like that. Then in the next verse, so what did he say here? Asat padartha navave na kinchit nahi asti triptihi nacha dukkha hanihi. So there is no termination of that bondage we are victims of. Tad advyananda rasana vritya. Only that happiness you can get. Tripta sukham tishta sadatmanishtaya. So there is this beautiful verse. I think it's on another page. I'll just, the very strict uh, advice is given that. So, this in the Rama Purvatapini Upanishad, there is the statement, Ramante Yogino Yasmin, where the yogis are, all the time celebrating Punnanandi Chedatmani, Iti Rama Pade Naso Param Brahmi Iti Giyate. So, Ramate Yasmin, where people exalt in an ecstatic mood, they celebrate their happiness. That is Rama. That is why this Rama award is given. And so it's very clearly is mentioning tat chintanam tat kathanam anunyam tat prabodhanam. So you should talk about the Atma whenever you're talking or do the Shastra Chintanam. So there was this Mahatma whose death anniversary was observed in Kailash Ashram, just 3-4 days. Tritya, on Tritya it was observed. It's the next day of Rath Yatra is kind of celebrated every year here. This fellow was Vidwan, Brahmagyani, people say. And then, he never had any Laukika Vyavahara. So if you go to him, he'll make you chant couple of slokas, he'll walk, then he's again talking about some Ayurveda or some Sastra, or at least he'll make you remember some grammar rules. But he never allowed any Vyavaharika exchange of words with him. And somebody apparently had given him a note and he never touched money. And then he sort of, he had a lot of siddhis. So he was holding it because he used to be sitting like a blind person. A lot of people thought he's blind. He said, "What is this?" Then he says, "Sir, somebody gave you a dakshina." He immediately threw it. He said, "Why did you bring it here?" He said, "No, somebody gave it." He just dropped it. Remove it from here. And he never touched a flower. He'll go to Ganga and he'll pick up a few pebbles and he'll bring them. He'd say, "These are the flowers Ma Ganga has sent you, Lord Shiva." Then he'll put it Har Har Mahadev. He'll give those small stone pieces to the Shiva Linga. A lot of people used to think he has completely gone mad. But he was in that ecstatic state all the time. And a lot of people had some personal interactions with him, and they used to feel that if you're disturbed, you are thinking something, you go sit next to him. Many of your questions, you have some philosophical questions. I mean, this I've heard from some good acharyas, that you have a philosophical question, you go and sit with him, you want to ask, but you sit there for 5-10 minutes, and then suddenly you find the answer. And they have come back and he said, "What happened? Why had you come?" "No, no, sir, we have got the answer." So he used to emanate that love. But then someone reaches there. That's what this Shastra is explaining here. The teacher is saying now, 525, Tvameva sarvatah pasyan manyamanaya swam advayam. Tvameva sarvatah pasyan manyamanah swayam advayam. Swanandam anubhanjanah kalam naya mahamate. So what should the student do now? He's saying, look here, you don't have to look for anything, no tirthas, no temples, you don't have to go any gurus, anything. What should I do? Tvam eva sarvataha pasyan. You see yourself everywhere. You are Sarvatmaka. You are Brahman. You are everywhere. Manyamanaha tvam advayam. And you see yourself. Realize it. Remember the importance of these words. Shankaracharya is writing all this after he has written the exalted self-expression of the student, where he's saying, I have become this whole universe, I am the king of this universe, there's nothing for me to get. The teacher is saying all this. It's like, you remember when you were in college or school. So you'd come, you pack your bags and everything, and okay, everything is done, I'm going. Then your dad comes to give a few words of irritating advice. He says, okay, keep your keys in place, and you have to have your breakfast, and you're going to buy a train, so you try to do this, you try to do that, or your mother does it, any of them. Why they do it? Do they distrust you? No, they don't. Then why are they doing it? Because this mind thing, even after it has seen the truth, it has an ability to delude itself. It has an ability to overlook what it has seen already. So they want to remind. It could be very irritating, could be very boring, and you must have seen a lot of the stand-up comedies where they make fun of their parents' nagging nature. And the gurus are sometimes like that. So the teacher is saying, Tvameva sarvataha pashyan manyamanaha tvam advayam. Swanandam anubhunjanaha. And then you experience that bliss which you are already. Experience it. Kalam naya mahamate. Spend your time. Because the body is going to fall. Then only we are going to get videha mukti. And we are not going to commit suicide or anything because we are atmajnanis. Till the body falls, you try to be of some use to others. You try to help some people. Do something. So do lokasangraha if you can help. If you can't help, you do meditation, you do anything. But you're trying to kill the time, remaining in that state of bliss that you are. That is the advice in the verse number 525. And then he goes further. If the student may have any doubt about that ultimate truth, whose realization he has already attained and he has talked about it, in case the mind may turn back to the samsara or recreate its old sanskaras which have been destroyed, but you never know because of prarabdha, it's in a continuous state. It's like a bike you have fixed, there was some problem. It behaves normally, but there is some endemic issue. It starts misbehaving after a few more kilometers. You must have seen that during college days. It misbehaves, the machine misbehaves because it wants to go for a complete servicing and you want to do a complete fixing. But some quick thing you can do, but it's not wholly fit. Similarly, we might experience religious exaltation, this or that. Nevertheless, complete transformation of our consciousness has not been fully achieved. That is why the teacher is saying, Akhanda bodhat mani nirvikalpe vikalpanam vyomni puraha prakalpanam tadvadvayananda mayatmana sada santim parametya bhajasva maunam. Teacher is now alerting him, warning him regarding a possible slide down, some kind of sort of a retreat from his exalted state. That might happen. Therefore, he's alerting, he's saying, Akanda Bodha Atmani, that Atma which is what? Akhanda Bodha, an awareness, consciousness, not subject to the limitations of time, space, and location or body, It's absolutely not limited to that. Desa kala vastu parisheda sunya atmani nirvikalape. It doesn't have any vikalpa. It's not one atma, two atma. There is no vikalpa. Nirvikalpa. There is no guna, drabya, kriya, nothing. No qualities, no attributes. Nirvikalpe vikalpanam. But then the vikalpas happen in the mind. Vikalpana is whatever the names and forms. Vikalpanam vyomni. Vyoman is akasa, in the sky. Puraha prakalpanam. Puraha means a city, Gandharva Nagari. You imagine a city, you look at the clouds, now the monsoon has arrived in India. You look at the clouds and children, I mean, as children, we used to have good fun. You look at it, it looks like three elephants, two horses, few people, a big army is coming. Look at the clouds and you see things. That's your imagination. The sky is nothing, but you imagine things. Similarly, this Brahman, that pure consciousness, is that pure consciousness. Names and forms, imaginations. It's called Drishti Srishtivada. Srishti is only a perception. There's nothing outside of this consciousness. Vikalpanam vyomni puraha prakalpanam. This is an imagined fake reality, and therefore tad advayananda maya atmana. Therefore, tad advayananda, that atma, that consciousness, that you verily are, which is limitless bliss, consciousness, and peace and harmony that you have attained. Advayananda Maya Atmana Sada Santim Param Etya. That Parasanti, ultimate peace. Why? There is no perturbation, there is no craving, no perturbation. At the end of any temporary termination of Santi, what do you have? Craving. Because once craving starts, the old sanskaras come, then you want to fulfill them. If you can't fulfill them, you are anxious. If you fulfill them, the fruits may not be lasting for a long time. Pros and cons come in and the mind becomes restless. Parashanti, because you're not looking for anything. It's nirapeksha ananda. It's not sapeksha. It's not dependent on anything. Therefore, he's saying sada santim param etya bhajasva maunam. Mananath Muni, so maunam tasya bhavaha. So we have studied in Bhagavad Gita, I remember. So you have some bahya mauna, that you shall not speak any words. And then there is some anta maunam. You are completely quiet. You are not symbolically saying, you bring me a cup of coffee or something. No, you are absolutely motionless within and outside. Maunam. And then you think, why? Why should I become maunam? Why should I be quiet? Why should I not have any movement? The teacher is becoming very happy. You know, once it happened, the same Chote Maharaj, who was famously known as Harihara Tirtha, Chote Maharaj was known as. And so one guy apparently did a lot of studies and all, and he went up to him and he said, Swamiji, I have a feeling that I have Atmajnana. What do you say? The teacher looked at him very quietly and he says, yeah, it's wonderful. And so don't get out of the ashram. Stay in your room. Because there may be bigna. You may lose the state. And the student went and told others, Chote Maharaj has given me a certificate that I'm self-realized. And so, after a few weeks, he left the ashram, he went out, and then he got trapped, he suffered a lot. There was a lot of restlessness and disturbance in his life. Somebody went up to Maharaj and said, Maharaj, you told him that he has already got Atmajnana. What happened to his life? Why is he so much disturbed? Maharaj said, no, he had come to me. He said, I feel I have Atmajnana. What do you say? I said, yes, it's very good that you have it. But don't leave your room. Stay in the ashram. Then don't even get out of the campus. Do your sadhana. And I told him, bigna ho sakte hain. Atmajnana cannot have any bigna anymore. Once you have seen the rope as rope, you cannot be scared of the snake anymore. When I say bigna, that means your perception has not stabilized. You have realized what the truth is. So far, the mind is in this framework. It's like you have a computer room, but it requires a low temperature. If it's exposed to the Indian summer, 45 degrees, system, whole thing may go for a toss. So you have to maintain that temperature. It's like in a lab condition. Certain things which, I mean, you can turn graphite into diamond in some lab conditions. And you put that piece of diamond into again fire, what happens? It becomes graphite again after some time. So if you want to reach that state of no return, no backslide, you have to reach that most reliable state of self realization, which is beyond all doubts, beyond all sorts of distractions, and you have summarily discarded everything, removed, purged all sanskaras of the mind, and that mononasa after Atmagyana, that is, yoga rudasya samhakarana muchyate, it requires a longer period of sadhana. Even after Paroksha Tattva Jnana, after Shastra Tattva Jnana, it requires still long period of sadhana. That is what he's saying. He's explaining that in the verse number 427. Tusnim avastha paramopasantir buddhe rasatkalpa vikalpa hetuho brahmatmana brahmavido mahatmano yatra dvayananda sukham nirantaram. He's saying what? Buddhe asata kalpa vikalpa hetuho tusnimavastha paramopasantihi. Because buddhe asata kalpa vikalpa hetuho. Because so far the buddhi is there, it will play this dirty game. And then a lot of things can happen. What will happen? The most self-realized person, look at the Siddhartha, you must have all read it, Haman Hesse. He was already there, and what did Buddha told? What did he tell him? He said, Siddhartha, you're wise, but you're cunning with words. Be careful. He said, who did you follow? Did you follow anyone? I'll follow my path. I'm self-realized, this, that, and what Buddha told you. You're cunning with words. That is a warning for all sadhakas. You are cunning with words. If anybody, the father says, you follow the karma kandas, the son wants to find truth, he meets the illumined one, Lord Buddha himself. He has an argument. You didn't follow anyone. Why should I follow anyone? I want to find my truth. Buddha tells you are cunning with words. Be careful. He goes on his path. What happens to him? He gets trapped in Kamala and this and that, and gambling and making money. And what was his meditation? This is beautifully Haman Hesse has captured. Slowly, how his mind is like a tire. You have, filled it with air and everything. It goes stall after some time on its own because of disuse. His whole sadhana and everything, okay, you're doing satsang and all, it's all fine. You leave it, and after some time, somebody gives you a book on Vedanta, you'll not even open it. Oh, fine. That was a fad. I was into it for a while. Yeah, I've read all that. You would be back to the same thing. And the beautiful meditation camps which the Buddhists do, and they say, when you go back to the office and these super fine qualities you have developed, they'll start evaporating, but then you will do the sadhana. Because we all the time slide back. And that's what the teacher is saying. Because buddherib asat kalpa vikalpa hetuho tusnim avastha paramopa shantihi. So that with this mental peace, this particular tushnim avastha, that quietness that you are trying to achieve after nididhyasana, that is paramopa shanti. Because otherwise the buddhi will start to, it will create all kinds of alternatives and you will start running after them. Brahmatmana brahmavido mahatmanaha yatra advayananda sukham nirantaram. So in that paramopasanti, why? Because in that tushni avastha, brahmatmana brahmavidaha mahatmanaha, so they where that particular location, that tushni avastha, where through atmagyana the brahmavid is fully enshrined in his blissful existence. And there is no more any confusion. This is what he's saying. Nasti nirvasanan maunat param sukha kruduttat uttamam vijñātātma swarupasya swarupananda rasapāinaha swananda rasapāinaha nasti nirvasanat maunat. Now this is a warning to the student. Nirvasanat, that means what? Vivikta desas sevitvam. Rahasi stitaha, in the sixth chapter he says that you have to go away from other people. Rahasi, rahas, tyaga, go away from people. You have to maintain that physical, mental distance. So he's saying there is no other place compared to nirvasana and a mauna. These are excellent conditions for stabilizing that upward ascent of the mind. Mind you, these are the advice given to a student who has already expressed his self realization. He has boasted that I'm already realized. He has bowed down to his teacher, and teacher is again repeating the same things as if he's in a kindergarten student in Vedanta. You see how challenging this whole business is, and therefore he's saying, Nirvasanat Maunat Param Sukha Krid Uttamam. There is nothing else which can give you more happiness. Everything else will give you dukkha only, because sansara, remember that story I must have mentioned you earlier. Billi Nahi Palna, I think there was Mahayogi and he was leaving his body. One of his young students who was taking care of him, he said, Maharaj, you are leaving his body. Why didn't you give me the ultimate secret, the Siddhi? The teacher said, never try to, have a pet cat, and he dies. And the student stays there for a while, and after some time, he was on the mountain. One fine morning, he finds a cat doing mew, looking for some milk. So he was going for viksha. He fetches some milk and brings it for the cat. Then the cat is very fond of him, chasing him all the time in his small cave where he lives. He comes down because he can find it easier to find milk for the cat. And then he moves closer to the township. Somebody donates some land. He starts doing cultivation. And then there is some businessman whose daughter is spiritually inclined, and she insists that I want to get married to you. She gets married to him. Then what? Sansara. And then after some time, he realizes his mistake and returns to the cave and starts from zero. And then he does a lot of sadhana and returns to that state of quietude. And he finds a Sishya who comes to him. And on his deathbed, what Siddhi mantra he gives? Never try to have a pet cat. The pet cat, in a certain way, is that vasana. If you entertain it, then that's a complicated thing. So therefore he's saying, Nirvasanat Maunat Param Sukhakrit Uttamam. There is nothing else which gives you happiness. Vijñāta Atmaswarupasya. The person who knows the Atmaswarupa. Swananda Rasapainaha. Nothing else can be better, more happiness creating than two things: maintaining distance from other people and enjoying that silence. Maunam, that meditative silence. Doesn't mean he'll not move around, not say hello, hi to people. Maunam is that internal, substantial quietude within. Why? Because he knows Atma Swarupa. And second thing, he has started enjoying what is that Atma Jnana. Swananda Rasapainaha is drinking, is relishing a drink called what? Atma Jnana. Swananda, Swananda, he is experiencing it. So nothing can be better than this particular thing. Two things, a bit of physical distance and a bit of silence. And then in the verse number 530, he says, Nadi Sakala Sanadi Yamadi Lakshadyapekshya Pratibuddha Sansiddha Tattvasya Mahatmanosti Swavedanika Niyamadhyavastha. Now, the student may have in his mind, so sir, okay, I have crossed the time, so we'll stop here. We have come till 5:30, and then from 5 we have few more verses. I think end of this week we will be done with it. By next Sunday we have 3-4 classes. Yeah, if we do Wednesday and Thursday and then Saturday and Sunday, on Sunday we'll be done with it. So any questions you have, or you can put it in the group. We have crossed the time, so I'll come back. And we can meet on Wednesday if you have time. So let's do the Shanti mantras. Om Purnam
पूर्णमदः
पूर्णमिदं
पूर्णमिदं
Purnam
पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णस्य
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय
पूर्णमादाय
Purnameva
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते।
Shanti.
ॐ